Hello, and welcome to Seeing Ink Spots Backstage Pass for our stamp class today. This is a class called Beautifully Happy, and it is a class featuring one of the Celebration stamp sets. So I'm glad you're here. I see somebody has popped on. It's my mom. How sweet. Hello, what's up, girlfriend? What you doing today? Pop on. When you pop on, go ahead and just give a shout out and say, I'm here. Hello. And then that way we can have some fun having a live chat here on our Facebook, our virtual Facebook stamp class venue. Anyhow, so I'm not quite sure who else is on, but now that we have a few people on, let's officially begin. Good Thursday morning and welcome to my pickup class called Beautifully Happy. And this stamp class is going to feature the awesome Celebration stamp set. I know this is backwards right now for you, but this is going to be super fun. We learned last week a little bit how to use these distinctive style stamps, so we're going to continue that this week and a whole lot more. So now that you guys are here, let's go ahead and like I say hello, let me know who's here, and then we can have some fun stamping and chatting via comments throughout today's class. Okay, so let's rotate the camera around and let's begin. So as you know, here comes the hand. So sorry, but it's what we have to do to get the, whoa, sorry. Okay, get things tightened up. Okay, so if you're wondering what I'm doing right now, I have to change the angle of the camera holder, and so that's what all that is for just a minute. But crazy stuff we do. So like I say, this is going to be a cool class. This is one of the Celebration rewards that you can select with a $100 purchase. And this is really a beautiful stamp set. Now, if you don't have this stamp set, pull out a floral set that you do have and replace the images. Or I could totally see this working with some other style. Maybe you have a really cool leaf set. You can just, bring what you have in your stash. So that is today. Now let's kind of look forward to the future just a little bit. What's coming up? Next week, we are featuring the Around the Bend. Whoops, one too many pieces of paper there. Around the Bend, and that will be our technique time, our big granddaddy class of the week. And this class is really, we're using the stamp set, but we're really taking a deep dive into the dies because the dies are really cool, and I want to share with you the benefits and the how-tos to work around that. So I will just give you a real quick sneak peek of what's coming. So if you're signed up for that class, great. Today is the last day to sign up for that. And actually tomorrow is, but I am super low on kits. So hopefully you already have. You can also, with a purchase, get into that class. Okay, in a couple weeks, our Use It Up class for February, I am going to be using up my Country Floral Lane DSP. And I just found out this punch that we're going to use, that's part of the bundle, that, is part of this suite. The stamp set is available. And this stamp set is a beauty. Again, it's that distinctive style, and we're gonna work on how to get really great images with that. The punch is on back order, but you know what? You have the universal punch called a pair of scissors. So there's that. Plus you might have a heart punch already in your library of products. So, like I say, the stamp set is available. Hello, Karen. Hello, Lori. I saw some people popping on. Awesome to have you. Awesome to have you here. So that's Country Floral Lane. For those of you who, how to get this kit right here is if you have a purchase during the month prior of $75 or more, it's going to get you technique time. So that's, you know, next week's kit plus the next month's, couple weeks later, that use it up kit. That's the only way you can get that kit. Okay, but you can always bring your own stuff. And then, let's see, I don't have an ad for it just yet, but this is coming up, just FYI, Taco Fiesta. That's not for a few weeks. It's in my bucket here, but not in the right order. This is what I was looking for. Studio ink spots. So my stamp camp for this winter is going to be a Park Days stamp camp. And a lot of you have signed up already. And there are 4 options for this stamp camp. Option 1 includes everything. So the bundle, extra classes, swag, the whole 9 yards. Bundle number 2 is the swag and the packets and fun stuff. Bundle number 3 is just the packets. So for those of you that might be a demonstrator and want to buy your own supplies, that's the way to do it. But I'm happy to buy them for you. But let's be real here. Okay, so this stamp camp, it's 4 days. We have 4 presentations. We have 4 stamp classes, lots of opportunities for you to stamp and share as well. It's going to be a good time. And now that you know that it's about Park Days, our opening game nights will be Ascot opening day. And so we will have, you know, a nice fun day at the horse races, or I should say horse races evening. And we will have lots of prizes and fun. And so you'll want to be a part of this. It's good fun. And none of this is posted here in the Backstage Pass. It's in a completely separate Facebook group just for the camp. So Karen says, yay, tacos. Yes, I totally agree. I had some fun with that. That will be the Use It Up class in March. And in fact, if you sign up for the Scene ink spots for the for Studio ink spots rather, sorry. If you sign up for the Park Days camp, in your part of that registration for option 1 and option 2 will be a Use It Up kit for the Taco Fiesta class. So, and that's going to be fun. And I might go really wild in that class because I love me some tacos. So, Kathleen Gonzalez is here. Happy to see you here. So, happy that you're all here. I'm not quite sure who's all. So Suzanne's here, Karen, Laurie, my mom. There's several others, but they're not showing the names for me. But pipe into the conversation. This is the first card we're going to do today, but we're going to kind of make it in shifts. So the first part, we're going to work on the watercolor. And what I call this technique, it's kind of like an aura. So I've created an aura of watercolor. I mean, this didn't just kind of happen by me just kind of putting the water on and adding the ink. I actually did some stamping and let the ink bleed to create kind of a perfect aura that frames our stamped images. So to do that, this is what we're going to need for this card. Grab yourself a piece of watercolor paper. And so this is a pretty heavy watercolor paper, the Fluid 100 in the Fluid 100 watercolor paper in the catalog. You can also use a nice watercolor paper, the Canson watercolor paper. They have different watercolor papers that are different weights that are really nice. The difference between, say, watercolor paper and basic white or shimmer white is this is a very heavyweight paper. It's good and sturdy. It's porous, and you can't do things with this paper that you can't, I mean, you can do things with this paper that you can't with the other. Sorry to confuse you there. So, watercolor paper, and I'm going to need my Stamparatus. So I have my Stamparatus nearby, and Stamparatus comes with 2 plates. I actually have 2 Stamparatus, so I pulled in a 3rd plate today just to make things a little bit easier, okay? But I also have a few extra blocks on hand, okay? And so you could use a block or you could use an ink pad, but let me show you. I don't know if you can totally see this. I know this is buckling here for right now. Get rid of that. I'm gonna put a block underneath, so now that way This is much more, let me move it out just a little bit. It's a little bit more level. An ink pad you can also use, okay? Ooh, ink pads are perfect for that. So ink pad or block underneath just to level you out. And same thing up here. Let me do a color we're not using for this project. We'll put a little purple there. Okay, so that will help with that. Let me do just a little bit of maneuvering. Sorry to make y'all dizzy. Okay, and I'm gonna bring this into view just a little bit more. All right, so this is what we're gonna do. So already on my plates here, these are called plates as opposed to blocks. So I have a piece of the grid paper that comes for the Stamparatus. And then I also have the foam mat inside that comes with the Stamparatus. And you're gonna need that foam mat because we are working with a photopolymer stamp set, okay? And so because that's photopolymer, that gives us that little bit of cushion for these, okay? So the images that I have placed already, actually, I placed these second and third. This was the first one I did. So this is the actual image. And so this image was put just randomly on the plate. And so let me just do it right now. Okay, so I'm gonna pop this in here. And we'll just ink this up for fun and just to see where this is going to land. I know it's out of the camera slightly right now, but you get the idea. And I just got ink all over. But go ahead and stamp your image on your grid paper in your Stamparatus. And now this tells me where I need to put my images, and I've already done this. So what's really easy is you just take, and I'll do this again just to kind of show you how to do this, is, whoops, we're sliding all over the place here, is take your stamp, okay? So this is the way you would ink it. So this is the side that takes the ink. Put it face down, and just because it's photopolymer, look how easy. You can line that up with the image, and then bring your plate down. Pick that image up with the plate. Just give it a little bit of a press. And if this gets out of whack, it's okay, because we just put it right back into place by kicking it in the corner there. All right, so now that's how I placed that. And I did the exact same thing with this plate to place my leaves. And so these are the leaves that fill in this bottom portion. And it looks like they're slightly off over here. But I think that's just the image itself is a little bit bigger. It's precise, but it also has a little bit of freedom in it to give it a little bit of an artistic quality, I think. Okay, so now that we've done that, we are going to need, we've set up our Stamparatus, I should say. You're also going to need a mini mister or Stampin' Mister. I can never remember what these are called. This has just plain water in it. And this is my aqua painter or water painter, whichever ones you have, with just plain water as well. And so the first thing we're going to do is take that watercolor paper that I have already lost. It's underneath the Stamparatus here. And I have 3 tips for doing watercolor projects today. Have you ever noticed that when you're doing watercolor, it really kind of warps and you're like, man, how do I get all this warping out? So I have 3 tips to help you with that. The first one is we are going to completely saturate both sides of the paper. And I'm doing this off camera here, but I am just spritzing. I just don't want water all over my work surface. So I have spritzed this side. Don't know if you can see. So we're going to call this the back, and I'm just going to use my fingers to kind of move that around. So that's the first tip. When you watercolor, and you're going to watercolor a lot, spritz both sides of your paper. Or at least spritz the back, or use your water painter on the back to get it wet. Okay, that back side needs to be wet. Keep your spritzer handy. And now I'm going to place my watercolor paper right over that image so that I know where it needs to be on my paper. Okay, there's that. And now the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to bring in, this is Flirty Flamingo. And I'm going to ink up, and I'm just going to kind of do something weird here. I'm going to ink up so that you guys can see what I'm inking. This is Flirty Flamingo, okay? And I'm also going to take this, and I'm just going to take the plate out for just a second, because I want, even though this is spritzed, I also want to spritz this a couple times. I want to get that wet. And now I'm going to just stamp down. And see how you can kind of see the ink is moving around in there? Just kind of pick it up and pounce it a couple times. And bring it up. Okay? Kind of let that do its thing for a second. See where things are going. And have either a paper towel or a napkin on hand. And I might just control it just a little bit in a couple places, because I don't want it to get too much of that pinky tone down in here. I want it to kind of go that way. All right, and this is where, if you want this to move just a little bit more, bring in your aqua painter and add a little bit more water. See how now it's just kind of moving in that direction? And it's gonna puddle a little bit, so I'm gonna control it just a little bit with my rag. Same thing over here. Each one turns out a little bit different. Now I'm gonna do the exact same thing we just did, but you know what? Before I actually put ink on my image here, I am gonna blot this just a little bit, okay? Sorry for the view, is a little weird when working with a Stamparatus. Okay, so here I'm gonna ink up again. Normally I would have the plate fully open, but I wanted you guys to see what I was doing ink-wise. And I am going to add, I'm gonna spritz it again. Spritz my image. Okay, I really want to get this spot right here. Doesn't seem to be getting a whole lot of water. Okay, put it back in my Stamparatus and just kind of pounce the ink here and there. All right, and we're moving around. So Courtney just sent a message. And she said, I don't know if I like the new messenger feature here. So I'm not quite sure what it is, Courtney. Okay, again, if I want to move this just a little bit more, and then it kind of spreads out. And you're just gonna kind of have some fun. Spritz it and just kind of keep moving things around. And the reason you have a rag on hand is because I can see this is dripping down the back quite a bit. But now what you can see is that my Flirty Flamingo here is pretty much in the areas where the flowers are. It's just kind of wicked out from there. And I don't like this strong spot right here, so I'm just gonna dip that, okay? Okay, now that I have that, I'm just gonna kind of blot here and there. And I'm gonna switch gears entirely and bring out Pear Pizzazz. And with the Pear Pizzazz, I'm going to do the leaves here. So Courtney, are you saying that the comments aren't in the usual spot? That's really weird. That would be why I'm not seeing any comments. And that's no fun. I want to know what you guys are doing. Okay, so I've inked up my Pear Pizzazz, and that's not super interesting looking just yet. So give it a spritz, because we want that ink to move. We really want it to like wick into the paper. Okay. We may have a little bit of mud here, but that's okay. I'm gonna blot this just a little bit. Okay. And I'm going to re-wet my paper down here because it's not really, there we go. Now we're getting some movement going. And bring your image back in, kind of move it around. See how I'm playing with this little bit of ink puddle in there is kind of cool, kind of fun. Something that I can't create with just you know, like swooshing my own watercolor wash type of thing. This is being a little bit more organic to the shape of the stamps. Jolinda says, is it shimmery white paper or watercolor paper? It is watercolor paper. So I talked about that at the beginning, that you would definitely need the heavier weight because we're hitting this with quite a bit of water here. I mean, this has a lot of water going at it right now, okay? So there's that. And now, for now, this is where we're gonna stop with this card because I want this to air dry. So that's watercolor tip number 2. Let your paper air dry. And so you're thinking, but you're gonna pick it up and it's not gonna be in the right spot on the Stamparatus. You're right. But because I've worked it in the corner and I'm gonna keep, you know, things attached, I can realign it and get it fairly close, okay? So, and because this is kind of a loose art, it doesn't have to be totally precise. So I'm just gonna dab on some of these where I want the color to kind of stop because I like the look of this. Now, let me bring this up closer. You can see there's kind of, you can see where the flower is going to go. I like that. That's what we're going for on this. So we're going for kind of an unusual technique. Okay, so for now, this is, like I say, tip number 2. If you remember what tip number 1 was, that was to spritz the back of the paper with water and the front, okay, for this technique. So I'm gonna clean all this out because I am gonna use my Stamparatus for our project number 2. Let me bring this back in and I'm gonna blot just a few more puddles here. Okay. And the other thing is, you know how it's curling right now? I'm just gonna kind of reverse it a little as well. There we go. Set that aside. And I can take these plates out and I'm still gonna keep everything where it was for this next card that we're gonna do. And I promise we'll do this next card from start to finish. We won't have it in 2 parts. Whoops. Okay, there's that. Set that there. Let me clean up this other plate. Okay. All right, moving right along. We are going to make a beautiful card. And to do that, the first thing you're going to need is this next card. We're gonna do just some nice stamping with some Memento ink. And we're gonna use fresh freesia. We're also going to use Highland Heather. That will be our floral color. And then our leaves are going to be Pool Party and Pear Pizzazz, okay? So find yourself, and it doesn't have to be these exact colors, but find yourself 2 colors for the flowers and 2 colors for the leaves that you like to put together. You're also going to need a blending brush for your flowers and a blending brush for your leaves as well, okay? Because we talked about that last week. To get a really great image with these distinctive style stamps, you need some blending brushes or possibly Stampin' Sponges, whatever you might have. Okay, so this, for my Stamparatus here, I have another piece of that grid paper. So let me put a piece of grid paper in here, get us all going. And I need a piece of white. So find yourself a piece of white cardstock that will fit the image, okay? So I need to clean this plate, but we're gonna fussy cut this out so it doesn't have to be a precise. So find a white scrap that you have. Let me just kind of clean that off. A white scrap you have that you can, pull that one out, that will fit our main image. Oh, you guys, talk about crash and burn here. It's, you know what, I'm gonna pull this out. Okay, because this has rubber feet and it will stop. Oh, I just shattered my magnet when it fell on the floor. Nice. Okay, so the first thing I'm gonna do is I'm gonna hold my paper down and I'm gonna take black. Just kind of get my black working here. Okay, 1,000 things trying to make it all fit in the screen. Sorry, folks. Okay, so I'm inking up the image in black here. And I'm just stamping on my grid paper again. I like to do that so that I know where the image lands, okay? Oh, nice. And it, you know, just so that I know where things are going, kind of let that dry. And then add your image right on top. That way you know if you've covered the entire image, it fits on your piece of paper. Ooh, that's big, intelligent. Okay, looks good. Now, again, I'm gonna slip an ink pad to level me out. It just makes it easier when I am inking up, gives me a little resistance. So I can really add some ink to this. Get the center. Okay, and we will stamp this on our basic white. Okay, make sure it's really good. Awesome, there it is. Level it out. Now I can take this plate out because we're done with this one. And now I'm gonna bring in my leaves. They're ready to go. I'm gonna close up the black. Bring in my Pool Party. So I'm gonna start inking up my leaves with Pool Party. I'm gonna slide this over so you can see. And I know this is, you're seeing an ink pad under there, but hopefully that, okay. So this is all Pool Party right now. I'm starting out with Pool Party. Now, we learned last week, and I don't know if you can see on here, all of there's little bubbles of ink on there because I just juiced up all my pads. I re-inked everything because things were feeling a little bit light to me, and I was having a hard time getting coverage. What you do want to do is blot on these distinctive images with a blending brush, and I'm just tapping a little, or with a Stampin' Sponge. I think the blending brushes would be better. Now with my Pear Pizzazz, I'm going in with a green blending brush, okay? And I'm just gonna pounce a little bit of color here and there. Not a ton, just a little. You could use Old Olive, you could use Mossy Meadow, whatever combo you wanna do. Swing your plate over and stamp your leaves. And I love this look in that what you get is that combination. It's, you know, instead of Pool Party or Pear Pizzazz, you have, you know, Pool Party Pizzazz or whatever you might. So you're creating your own color combinations that nobody else, you know, is going to make. Unless they, you know, it's going to turn out different anytime. So let me just go back. Suzanne says, cool way to get color in the right place. That's right, Suzanne. Okay, so I think I'm going to add just a little bit more green to this image. I'm not going to re-ink with Pool Party. I'm not going to fully re-ink with Pear Pizzazz, but I am going to tap just a little bit more here and there. Just a little bit. And because I'm adding it with a blending brush, it's not going to be like too overly powerful or crazy. But look at that. Look how pretty that is when you add those two colors and make it kind of cool. So that's why I'm using the Stamparatus right now. Because they're photopolymer stamps, you could just stamp right on top. You can align them pretty good with your eye. It's fun to get out the Stamparatus and go, you know, hardcore stamping, if you know what I mean. Okay, so now for the flowers, we're gonna do the exact same thing. I'm gonna ink this up, and I'll take this off just so you guys can see. Oh, come on. So you can see what I'm doing. I'm gonna ink that up with Fresh Freesia. Tap, tap, tap. And I'm gonna blot off my purple with, or I should say, I'm gonna blot the ink off with my purple blending brush, just to kind of smooth that out. And so that, the reason for this is because you have all these micro lines in the stamp. And if you have too much ink in the stamp, those micro lines don't show up. Now with Highland Heather, I'm gonna take my purple and just tap in a little bit more. We're just adding some depth of color here. Okay, and we'll put that into the Stamparatus. And we will stamp that. Okay. Ooh, kind of pretty. Totally different from my first time when I stamped it earlier because I juiced up my ink pads again. But I like this. I do have some lights and some darks, and it's really, really kind of fun. Now, if I wanted to add just a little bit more of that purple, the darker purple, really get this kind of an intense color. I'm going to do this upside down so you guys can see. I'm just going to pounce a little bit right in the center here. I'll just give it just a little bit more. And yes, it did. It just kind of intensified right in through there. That's all I'm going to do with my Stamparatus. for this project. Let me move that out of the way. It is not easy using a Stamparatus under a phone. It's in your way. So to finish this, I want to ink up these leftover pieces there, and there is a stamp in the collection of images, and it's this one here. Let me pull out the box, if I can find the box. It's way over here. Hold on. So, as you're looking at your stamps, this image right here, okay, so this one, that's the piece for filling in these berries and leaves. So my ink colors for the leaves were Pool Party, if you remember. So I'm going to tap on the Pool Party. I'm going to blot. And I'm going to bring my Pear Pizzazz back in. And I am going to be strategic, or I'm going to try to be strategic with where I add this Pear Pizzazz. I want it in this spot here for that flower, and for this one, and that leaf. So basically it's these bottom images. And then I kind of want the Pool Party, and I'm doing just a touch or two, and I want the Pool Party for this, the more, you know, these berries, or it's more of like a pod. What is it before the flower blooms, you know, and opens? So I'm just aligning that. And there you have it. Pretty. I think it's totally pretty. And so different than my original because I re-inked my pads. So it's just interesting, you guys, you know, it's way less work when your ink pads are nice and juicy and filled. Okay, so that finishes that almost. Now, in the stamp set, there's a couple really tiny images. There's the bee. There's this little tiny piece, which is right here on my block. Okay, you can see I have two images on one block. This little tiny piece, which is the backside, and then that one. And this one goes to the inside. It's kind of the cone of this flower there. It also fits the bumblebee, kind of the bum end of the bumblebee. And this one here fits inside this image right there. And so what I'm going to do, and you know, you can choose to leave it blank. You can choose to do whatever. So I'm using the more round one. Yes, I have two images on a block, but I'm using that Highland Heather, and I am just going to build color in there, and I'm going to continue to stamp and stamp and stamp, okay? Just kind of moving, and I'm just kind of pouncing around to really make the center of that filled in, okay? And so while you think, wow, well, is that Blackberry Bliss or something? No, I just used my Highland Heather over and over and over again. It's kind of a fun technique. We're going to do it again at the end on our third card. Okay, so, and that, it's interesting, as it lightens, it starts to kind of blend in. So have some fun with that teeny tiny little baby stamp. Now this, what you're going to do next is fussy cut it out, but you don't want to sit and watch me fussy cut. So I did leave this center undone. So let me give that a little color. We'll do the same thing. A little Highland Heather. You can see, so this is before re-inking and this is after. So, you know, have some fun. Let me just give this a little color in the center. And I'm being just a little bit lighter on this one because my ink is lighter to begin with. Okay, so this will take you a little while to fussy cut this piece out. My tip for you is when you're trying to get in there is I just cut, and I kind of talked about this last week. Let me see if I can bring a piece of paper in here. I'll just bring this little piece of blue. I actually, as I'm coming up and around here, I just cut right in to get inside of there and then kind of worked myself across. And that's how, you know, and you can put it back together. No one knows that you actually cut it apart. That's how you can get into those nooks and crannies much easier. Don't be afraid to just cut across. Okay, so there's my image, and it is filled with dimensionals. Haha. So that is going to be the focal point for our card. Our card, we are going to use a Coastal Cabana base, and this card base is 8.5 by 5.5. And I've scored it at 4 1/4. So super, super basic, folks. And let's give it a good fold and a good crease. Okay, so there is my card base. And I am going to use, I'm going to use a different color piece of paper right now just to show you how I've kind of cut my background paper. But these are my pieces that I'm going to use on my card. And these are 2 separate pieces of paper. Okay, so what I did, and let's just do it so that you guys can actually do it with whatever pieces you want. I am using the Dandy Designs from Celebration. And so, like I say, these are 2 different pieces of paper, okay? And what I did is I cut them. The paper comes 12 by 12, but I've cut the kits down so that they are 6 by 6. And the Dandy Designs, we're gonna use the Dandy Designs in our Studio Ink Spots Stamp Camp. So I'm giving you some secrets here, a little sneak peek. But so each participant will get a pack of 6 by 6 of the Dandy Designs. So what I've done there is I've trimmed my piece to 4 1/4 by 5 1/2. Okay, so that's the same size as my card front. Now what I want to do, so I would have done this for both pieces of paper. So for the Coastal Cabana, I had a 4 1/4 by 5 1/2. And for the polka dot, I had 4 1/4 by 5 1/2. And then with both of them, and you need to go the same direction with both of your pieces, put your tips, so opposing corners, into your trimmer. Make sure they're like nice and perfect, and cut those pieces of paper apart so that way you have 2 separate pieces. So if you're doing 2 separate pieces like this, you're gonna have enough for 2 cards. Okay, so you're doing the prep for 2 cards here. So this is what I'm gonna use right here. I'm gonna move my trimmer out of the way. And then these pieces are going to mount on my card front. But you know me, if pants can have pockets, why not cards? So I'm gonna turn this into a card with a pocket here. And so this is what I was figuring out a couple days ago when I was designing this card. I'm like, oh, I kind of had something else in mind, and something else entirely different is what I did. Do you ever do that? It's just like, oh, that would be cool to kind of change that and do that. Okay, so you know me, I have to unclog my glue every time. So I am going to, rather than gluing both of these onto my card front, I am just, look how cute that paper is. Sorry, digress. I am going to glue both of these onto my card, but not the second one just yet. Okay, come on, glue. It's still got a big clog in there. I can hear the dogs in the other room tearing apart garbage. Do you guys have dogs? And I can't, oh, come on. All right, well, this is not behaving. So we're just gonna go to our little snail here. Okay, so take this piece and glue this on, and I'm gonna put this right up on the edge and line up these corners perfect, okay? This is where I had a change of plans as I was going to put this together. I was gonna put this on just like so, and I thought, okay, good. And no, wait a minute. I want this a little bit more dimensional than just a regular card. So what I did here is I brought my trimmer back in, and I'm gonna align that point right in the groove of my trimmer. Same thing with that point, and I am gonna cut precisely right on that edge here, okay? Whoops, I dragged my scoring blade with it. So now when this opens, I don't have any overlap. It's a completely clean cut. And I was like, oh, I like that. Now for the second part, I'm gonna glue this one onto here because this one's gonna fit just perfect. Okay, so let's glue this in place. So just kind of line this all up. Okay, get that. Ooh, that looks good. It's a nice fit. Now to put this on, I'm gonna turn this into a pocket card so that when you open it, you have access in here. You know me, I like, you know, if pants can have pockets, why not cards? So we'll add adhesive just to the side and the bottom. Okay, now here's where it gets really kind of cool. And that is, you've got a perfect miter in here. Just align that right back up on the front of the card. And look at that. I was like, oh, that's so nice. There's no gap. It's like a completely, you know, it's perfect. So that's what I did for my card base here. Yes, that's pulling up because that's going to be the front of the card. Okay, so here is our finished card base with a pocket. Love it. And I'm also going to use a piece of this. You could use Pear Pizzazz, you could use Old Olive, because to me, both colors are in this Dandy Designs. But what you're looking for is you're gonna cut yourself another rectangle that will match your designer series paper, whatever you might be using. And so this, I actually cut with a with one of the rectangles from Stitched Rectangles, and it measures, it's about 2 1/8 across by 4 inches tall. So 2 by 4 or 2 1/8 by 4, that's what you're looking for on this. And we're going to add this to our card front, kind of like right in there with dimensionals, but we're not quite ready to add it, because what I want to do is find yourself a piece of designer series paper that matches. On my original, let me show you the original here, where we're going with this. On my original, I used the backs of one of these, you know, because we kind of had that bottom piece. But the other one didn't really match the card as well. So I found another piece in the pack. But just find yourself a nice piece that kind of, a third contrasting piece. We're gonna kind of beef up this rectangle by adding a little detail over here to the side. And it's a 1/2 inch wide right now. And then I'm gonna make it 3 1/2 inches long, okay? So any old size, it doesn't really matter. It can be whatever you like. But you're just trying to find a piece of, you know, like I say, a third piece of designer series paper, or you could use a piece, if I'm using this color combo, I could have a piece of fresh freesia over here, solid. It just really depends on what you wanna do. And then I'm gonna add some glue to this. And this is, I really want glue because I need a nice thin line of glue, not a big wide strip. Let's see if I can get this glue to go now. Oh, there we go. Yay, just in the nick of time. So real thin bead of glue. And add that. And that's just a nice little feature right in there. The card base, Sherry, is Coastal Cabana. And I am using the Dandy Designs for this. In fact, I'm using Dandy Designs on all 3 of our cards today. So there is the background for my flower that we're gonna add, but we're gonna add a little bit of stamping to this. And to do that, I'm gonna use this image here. I think it's a cute little image. This is gonna be the focal image for our 3rd card today, but it's dirty, so I need to give it a quick clean. You think I would bring them to class clean, but yeah. Okay, and I'm gonna stamp that with Pear Pizzazz because my card base, or not the card base, but my rectangle here, my stitched rectangle is Pear Pizzazz. So I'm just gonna do a tone on tone, and I'm gonna put one of these flowers in the corner, and I'm gonna do the same thing in the bottom corner over here. Okay. And I love that my ink pads are nice and juicy, and I'm not having to work so hard to ink them up, if you know what I mean. Okay, now this is done, and I'm gonna add this to my base with dimensionals. So what I'm gonna do is kind of, this is where I want it to go. I'm just kind of lining up the corners here. So the corner of my Pear Pizzazz rectangle and the corner of my Designer Series paper. So I'm just gonna kind of hold my fingers here, and I'm gonna bring in some dimensionals here. We're using up bits and pieces of dimensionals here. Okay, so I'm gonna put a dimensional there. And the reason I'm doing it on this side of things is because I don't wanna put them here and then have them exposed. So if I do it over here, I know for sure that they're gonna be covered up, and we'll do one more right there. Okay, and we'll peel these and put our rectangle layer on like so. Lining that back up, okay? So you can put that wherever you'd like. You can put it center, you can put it over a little, it's up to you. But now that way I know for sure those dimensionals are not showing, okay? So there's my base, and then your fussy cut piece, let me see. Where did I put it? Here it is. So we have our fussy cut piece is gonna layer right in here. But before we do that, if you see here in my original, I have a purple circle in there. I have a couple purple circles. So I thought it would be fun to use some of the Designer Series paper from the Dandy Designs. And so I'm gonna, instead of doing a shimmery purple, I'm gonna do this purple here. And it's one of the ginghams, and then this side is kind of just a grid. But I thought that would be pretty right in here. So we're just adding some kind of coolness going in here. And I dropped my twine. I have some twine for this card. And this is black twine. This black baker's twine is from the Essentials pack, and you get 5 colors in the Essentials pack, and they're all neutrals. You get gray, crumb cake, white, ivory, and black. So I'm using the black for this card. Okay, so this was cut. Let me go back to the circles here. We're gonna cut 2 circles. One from the Dandy Designs, and this circle is from the Stylish Shapes. I think it's the second to largest. So stitched rectangles, Stylish Shapes, they have become, you know, they're welcome to the party just like Wink of Stella and Linen Thread. They're always, you know, you just have some basics that you are going to need. And yes, this is the second to largest of Stylish Shapes, okay? You could use just a circle punch. You could use layering circles if you want to do that. I like this one because it does have that nice stitched detail in it. And so that's why I'm using the stitched shapes or Stylish Shapes. Stitched Shapes is retired, but you could use that too. I think that's what my mom has, is the Stylish Shapes, or Stitched Shapes rather. Okay, so this circle, I'm trying to dig it out, you guys. This is like so unnecessary, but it's giving you time to die cut, right? And to fussy cut. This piece here, for this one, this is the second to smallest. There's one more that's even smaller. Okay, so those are the 2 that I'm using circle-wise. So we have stitched rectangles and Stylish Shapes here. This one's purely, I'm not going to stamp or do anything. I'm going to add it to my base here. Okay, and let me bring in my fussy cut piece just so I can kind of see about where I want to put that, because I want this to kind of cantilever over just a little bit. So this looks good. And then decide, you know, how you want your grid to lay out here, if you're using a piece that has a plaid. And then this, we're going to peel all these. I already put mini dimensionals on the back of this, so you didn't have to watch me do all that. But you know, I do like to pop things up. Okay, add this to our front. Ooh, that's so pretty. But look how this just kind of accentuates. You don't notice that it's really a flower. It's just giving us a little background. You do see a little flower action there. So we have a little bit more stamping to do to finish this card though. So grab yourself a piece of white, some more white, because we have just a little bit more stamping to do. So I'm going to bring my main image back in here, and I'm going to stamp the flower, not the full flower. I just want this main image here. But let me go to Suzanne's comment here. She says, I can't tell which re-inker to use. I have re-inkers from 2000s. They don't have dates. So the last few times I've left them in the boxes, so I don't know which are new. Okay, Suzanne, I will help you out a little bit more offline, if you know what I mean. But let me just tell everybody, if you have new ink pads, this new style, you do need the newer re-inkers because the formulation is different, okay, than what they were from 2000. So, and I too, Suzanne, have some of the older ones and the newer ones. I just generally, if I have a new pad, I go to my newer ones as a rule of thumb. But that's a really good comment. So rather than putting this in the Stamparatus, because I know I just need that little bit, I'm going to ink up the image here. And I am going to just put my paper on and just kind of rub so that I don't have to put it all the way back in the Stamparatus. I was going to stamp them a jig, but that's all I want is that flower. So that turned out perfect. It lightened up just where I didn't need it. And we're going to also color this one in. So I will bring this in, the Stamparatus back in here. Okay. And I'm going to pull the plates aside because I need to color this. Okay, so now we're going to attempt to put this back together. Look at that. Is it going to work? It's right this way a little bit. Bring that up to there. Oh, she's a sly one. Okay, and we'll put my magnets on here. So now you're seeing like the crazy ways she stamps. Okay, it's slightly off, so I'm going to bring it down just a little bit. Move it over. Ah, that should be perfect. So I'm going to ink this up in Fresh Freesia, just like we originally did. I'm going to blot it. Now, I would normally have the plate like lifted up, but it doesn't fit in the camera here. So I am blotting. So I'm just going to give it a stamp. Okay, cool. Now let me add a little bit of the Highland Heather. Okay, get it just a little bit darker. Ooh, I love it. I love when you start adding that second color in there. It just really makes it interesting. So now I have that piece done. And I have fussy cut it out already. Okay, so there's the one that's going to match this. I will fussy cut this one out and use it for the one that we stamped today, but you don't need to sit here and see me fussy cut it out. But what I did do before I put a dimensional on is I need to stamp the center. Hold on. Let me get the center. So I'm going to use the Highland Heather. Bring that back in. And the little teeny circle piece. And we're just going to stamp that a couple times to build that color up and create a little bit of a variation, whoops, between the center and the rest of the petals. Okay. Now I'm going to curl the flower both directions, forward and back, with my bone folder. I'm just softening the paper here. And I'm going to kind of come this way. And then I just kind of like give it a little ruffle with my fingers. And so I have some petals bent backwards, some are coming forward, but it's just creating a little bit of depth that I didn't have when it was just, you know, a flat piece of paper. Now I can add my dimensional there. And this is going to layer right on top. Now you can choose to line it up exactly, which would be like right here, or you can turn it just a little bit. And I'm going to turn mine just a little bit so that I see the petals from the you know, this lower layer and this one. It's just creating some fun dimension there. Okay, a little bit more stamping. Bring in your piece of white. Okay, where we stamped that. We are going to stamp this tiny little bee. It's just a cute little image in this stamp set. So here's the bee. I have it off on the corner here so that I could see through for that one. You know what? I only have 2 of these little teeny blocks. I don't use them that often, but when I do, it's like I need 3 or 4. So just on your white, Stamp the bee. Oops, I missed his wings. Stamp another one. Stamp the bee. Okay, let that dry just a little bit, because if you go in and stamp it right now, it might bleed just a little bit. So I am going to use the Fresh Freesia and the Pool Party, and the little images. That's not the one. This is the block we want. So I'm just gonna kind of clean that off real fast here by stamping off. So the round one, and I'm gonna stamp off. I'm just gonna put that at like his head. And then the little more cone-shaped one that fits the flower, it also fits his bum of the bumblebee. All right, so now I have a cute little two-tone bee. Just use colors on your bee that will match your card. And we're gonna fussy cut that out. I didn't fussy cut this out ahead of time because I didn't know if I could like not lose it. So we're just gonna do a real fast fussy cut here. Coming around. Just gonna do a loose fussy cut here so that my piece of paper isn't so big. A little tricky on these teeny tiny images, but you can do it. Tell it who's boss. Okay, let's come around. And I've not done the greatest fussy cutting here, but I can clean it up just a little bit. I'm just gonna come in here and snip between these legs, just a little bit of that white out. Because the white, I don't have any white in my background. My background is Pear Pizzazz, and I really don't want this white to show. Okay, so just trim it away, like so. Now you're gonna have to make yourself a little, a micro mini. So I'm just gonna take a little snip off of the edge of a dimensional there. Teeny tiny little dimensional. You could put him on with glue if you wanted. I don't know why I keep calling this bumblebee a him, but I do. I don't know why. Okay, can't even get the stupid dimensional covers off. He's gonna go on with glue in a second here because I am struggling. Okay, no. Gotta be kidding me. Come on, cooperate. All right, now my little bee, hopefully it sticks. I'm just to add him to the composition right about there. And he's just barely holding on, folks. Two more things. We're gonna tie our linen thread here, or not linen, this is Essentials twine, black Essentials. Tie yourself a bow. Okay, shape it how you like it. This side just a little bit longer. And it's going to set right about there. So I'm gonna do just a little bit of snail right there. And then we'll cover up the mechanics with our greeting. Okay, so there's that. Shape that the way you like. I kind of like those, my tails to kind of go through the center of the loops. So I'm kind of putting that, I'm manipulating where these tails are lying. So sorry, did you say the paper was Pear Pizzazz? Was 2 1/4 by 3 1/2. This one here is the stitched rectangle that is 2 1/8 wide by 4 inches. 2 1/8 by 4. So find that stitched rectangle. Let's see, I think it's going to be, since we're here, I should have counted these down. I think it's this one right here. Nope, it's the next one bigger. So let me just double check. Getting all fumbly here. This is the correct one. So if you store your stitched rectangles on a magnet, it's going to be the 4th largest. So if you count them in, 1, 2, 3, it's the number 4. I call that number 4. 2 1/8 by 4 inches, Sherry. Okay, so there's that. And greeting. Let's stamp it in black because that's kind of our color here that we're using as our images color. And you could pick any greeting that you like, but I like this one that says, "You are easy to love." You are easy to love. And I'm just gonna stamp that right in the center. And we'll add this to the card with a dimensional. Well, it's on its back, good. We'll use this one up. I am using up all my edges of dimensionals here. Okay, and so now this is going to just kind of nuzzle in and layer right on top like so. And trim your ends. Okay, looking good. Now, card wouldn't be finished without a little bit of bling. So let's bling this one out. And I say let's use up some gems from the Holiday Mini Catalog. I used these last week in our Use Up class, but I didn't show them to you because I didn't have them out with me. But these are the adhesive backed sequins and gems. So I'm using the pinks and the greens, and then these are the gems that fit the snowflakes, that these were part of the suite. But I think that these are just the perfect color for what we're doing here. So I'm gonna use both. I'm gonna use some of this Coastal Cabana and some of this pink color. I've got kind of a wreck going on there. But just add your not your dimensionals, but add your gems wherever you like them. I like to tuck some and hide them just a little bit so that they're just peeking out here and there. And so I thought it'd be fun to kind of tuck one back in there. So this is the pink color. You could use any colored gems you want. I'm gonna put this one here. And this one, I'm gonna kind of tuck back in here. Okay, so I've got 1, 2, 3, kind of working in a triangular layout. You know, I like to do that. And now we don't want a dimensional cover on this, but we do want some gems. So I'm gonna add, you know, maybe one showing here. And let's see, maybe one like right in here. Just have some fun with those, wherever you'd like to put them. And then I pulled out a second set. I don't typically pull out a second set of gems or rhinestones on a card, but I wanted an iridescent rhinestone. I really wanted some dimension on the center of this flower. So I'm gonna use a small, this is iridescent rhinestones, the smallest size, and I'm just gonna kind of give that, and I'm gonna go ahead and push down with my lid and really get that to pop. And so there you have it. Finally, we have one card finished and one card partially finished. So on my my original here, it looks like I moved my purple circle in a little further. This one's hanging out a little further, but it's fun. I've got a little bit of variation, same card, slightly different variation on how it came together. And you could flick it with a little bit of Wink of Stella. You know, flowers always look beautiful when they have just a little bit of glisten to them. It's like putting on their lip gloss, right? You're like, that lady is so weird. But there you have it. It is a pocket card, so you could easily add, you know, something in there, a photo, you know, something special. There you have it. I think it's super pretty. Fun to mix those ink colors while you're using these distinctive images. You know, play with it. Play with adding color to your images. It just takes things up to a completely different level, in my opinion. Rather than, I mean, it's beautiful to just stamp it with one color, but when you can add a second color, why not? Okay, I have a big mess going on, but let's bring in this piece of paper that we started with. It's now dry and I can continue to work with it, and it has created kind of an organic halo that's going to work right around my images. And it's interesting how it's going to be different each time. So we are going to bring in the Stamparatus again. So, but let me just do a quick, I'm going to wipe all this, whoops. That was the Stamparatus plate falling on the floor. I'm going to clean off some of that ink. Okay, these are our leaf and petal colors, but I'm going to remove my leaf plate and I'm going to put the main image plate back in here. Okay, so the main image plate is going in, and we're going to set this up. We're going to kind of eyeball it a little bit. But I can see I have some guidelines right in there. So I'm going to get that right in the general area. So line it back up. It doesn't have to be perfect because remember, this is a halo or kind of an aura, whatever you want to call it. And I think I'm going to twist it just a little bit, but make it in there, get it in there just how you like it. Doesn't have to be exactly perfect. What we do need to change though is our ink color on our image right now is black. So clean off the black. And I'm using my chamois to do that. Get that all off. Because our image color is going to be, you could use Pear Pizzazz or you could use Old Olive, whichever you choose. Okay, there's that. Keep your chamois nearby. And the reason you want to keep your chamois nearby is so that you can, we're going to clean and do a little bit of stamping, repetitive stamping. Since we have the Stamparatus, I'm going to kind of change the color up here just a little bit. So the first thing I'm going to do is add a little Pear Pizzazz, and I'm going to strategically add this ink where the leaves and the stems are. I'm trying not to get those main flowers. If I do get them, that's okay too. But I'm aiming for the leaves and the stems. And I'm not pushing super hard, but there you have it. Ooh, a lot of ink right there. Shoot, Queen. Okay, well, it is what it is. Let's do it one more time. I'm gonna clean it. Okay, and the reason I'm gonna clean it is because I know I need some more ink here, but I don't need any more ink right in there. And if you put the image on again, it might shift a little, it might not, but I just don't want to risk it, especially with a really juiced up pad. Okay, so just tap that in there. I guess what I could do is, since it is juicy, is come in here and kind of blot this a little bit. But I know I need to get this flower better, or sorry, not flower, but leaf. I sure make a lot of mistakes when I talk. That's good. And now I'm gonna clean the image, and I'm gonna do some of the same sort of thing. This time I'm gonna go back to that Flirty Flamingo. And I think I'm gonna add this with a blending brush because I want to try and hit where the flowers are. Okay, so definitely hit. Okay, so we cleaned off the green ink. We're adding in the Pear Pizzazz. And if it overlaps onto where the green is, that's okay, you won't even see it. Now let's close this. Lift it up. Oops, we are sliding. Oh yeah, that's right, we take this piece out when we're using the Stamparatus so it doesn't slide all around. So now you can see where my image is. It's a little bit lower, but that's okay. They're blending, it's organic, it's how it's happening. In fact, that's what my mom, she likes to call some of her scarves and things that she'll knit. It's a happening, so it's a happening. But now let's go ahead, and I think I'm gonna add just a little bit more green into some of here, because this is a little light. Just a little bit, you're just playing with it. You never know. Exactly. Okay, so now I've got a little bit more of it's got just a little bit more of a brownish Flirty Flamingo color, which I think is really cool. Okay, I'm liking that. Now I'm gonna take this piece off, this plate off, bring in my leaf plate again. Okay, and I'm going to ink up in Pear Pizzazz. And I'm definitely gonna blot off. You can see, just wanna bring this back in. Can you see all that it's like the little bubbles of foam from the ink pad are in there. We do not want those, so we are gonna blot those out. Just tap with your blending brush. Okay. And let's stamp that. And I'm not pressing down super hard. I just want a little bit. And so I've got a little bit of I want to soften that just a little bit right in there. So maybe we'll tap. See how it's a little, I didn't tap enough of the bubbles out. But there you have that. Now let's do the flowers. And so for the flowers, I am going to use the Pear Pizzazz, but I'm also going to use a little bit of Pale Papaya. So I believe we need to clean it because this is Flirty Flamingo or something. Anyway, just have that chamois, have your rag or paper towel handy. But let's ink this up in Pale Papaya. And I'm gonna tap the ink just like we normally would, okay, because this is a juicy pad. Again, I would normally have this plate open to do this, but because I need you guys to be able to see it. So I'm gonna fill that in with a little pale papaya. Okay, kind of cool. Ooh, I think it's pretty. It's different. I've got some definite highs and lows in there. I think I'm gonna add just a little bit of Flirty Flamingo. I'm really liking the way that that's turning out. So I'm just doing a little bit of Flirty Flamingo on my brush here and just maybe tapping a little bit in a few spots just to give me a little bit of variation in color. Okay, that's turning out really pretty. Now, at this point, I can remove this from my Stamparatus, get all this gizmo out of the way. And what's gonna finish it off is we're gonna add that other image that I didn't have on the Stamparatus. We're gonna add that image into here, and it's gonna kind of finish that and make it kind of, you know, just come to life, and it'll look quite a bit more interesting. Okay, we need this image here. Remember this one? That's the one that's gonna fit the leaves here and coming up these little bulbs here. And so I'm gonna do that in Pear Pizzazz. So let me bring in Pear Pizzazz. So I'm inking it up. Look how dark that is. That's gonna totally take over, and I don't want that to happen. So with my green blending brush, I am gonna pounce a lot of that color right off, okay? Now, I might want it just a little bit darker in a few other spots. So I'm gonna bring in Old Olive, and just maybe that one's gonna get some Old Olive. Kind of down, we decided these lower images were what needed the little bit of a darker hit, okay? But pounce it, make sure you don't have any puddles of ink, any little foam bubbles. And now, just gave it a little huff, I'm going to add this image right in there, okay? There you have it. Okay, now here's where the fun begins. If you want to add just a little bit more color, you could. So with your aqua painter and maybe your Flirty Flamingo, I'm gonna give my pad a little bit of a squeeze so I can collect a little bit of color there. I'm going to just take a little bit of watercolor here, get it juicy, get your ink moving, and maybe just, you know, adding just a little bit more here and there, whatever you want to do. Maybe just right in there. Just kind of move this around if you feel like you need. I'm really liking that flower. This one's looking a little, okay. That looks good. We'll let that dry. And the next thing I'm gonna do is let's kind of do a few of our, while I'm just letting that dry for a few seconds, a little bit of creating the background for our card. So our card base is just your standard 5.5 by 8, excuse me, 5.5 by 8.5, scored at 4 1/4. Oh, that's not 4 1/4. Oh, I must have been on some funkiness. I just did this last night. How could I be so off? Okay, let's make this the real 4 1/4. We're just gonna put that score line to the back. Okay, make sure that it's at 4 1/4 and not just 4. Okay, there we go. Now no one's the wiser unless they look at the back of the card. Don't look at the back of the card. Okay, so there's my card base. Ta-da! Now I'm using some of the Dandy Designs here. And this piece is Calypso Coral, so it stars on the back, and then I really love this. Has a little bit of fresh freesia and the Calypso Coral together and a little pale papaya action. And what I've done is I have cut myself, you can see I kind of did a rough cut. I cut myself a stitched rectangle. So you're gonna need a stitched rectangle for your, we're just gonna kind of do some nice little accent pieces here. And so this stitched rectangle, it's over here from this side. So on, you know, where you've got these 4 here, it's the second one. The dogs are at it. So it's this second size, which is, it's about 1 3/8 by 3.5. So 1 3/8 by 3.5. Can you hear him barking out there? Ugh. Someone's walking by. It's like, who's walking by? It's snowing outside. Okay, so there's that. And I'm going to take this and I'm going to cut it right down the middle because it's going to be an accent on the sides of our watercolor piece. Okay, so just now that you got it cut out, go ahead and trim it down the middle. And you have just enough. Let me kind of move this out of the way. You have just enough. They're going to kind of come here to the sides, and then our watercolor piece is going to come on top. But now that I feel this is dry enough, I can put this through my Stampin' Cut and Emboss machine, and I'm going to cut this out with my stitched rectangles as well. And I think I'm using this one here. Am I using that one? No. I looked at my original. I'm going to use the number 2. Okay, so it's the second largest of all the stitched rectangles. And you do want to make sure that this is dry. If this is not dry, and you put it through your Stampin' Cut and Emboss machine, it's just going to tear the paper. So now decide how you want to frame this. And so I'm going to run this through the Stampin' Cut and Emboss machine, just like that. Okay. Whoops. Slid right off. Oh, come on. It's wiggling. Okay. So there's my stitched rectangle. Let me bring my piece in. There we have that. Looking good, looking good. Whoops, I shouldn't put that there. I should really put this back here. So again, that was the second to largest of the stitched rectangles. So now you see why I cut this with the stitched rectangle. That way it, we're repeating that stitch line, and I think it kind of brings it together nicely. So now, keeping this nice and easy, before we glue these on to the back of this, we're going to do a couple more things. If you remember, I said there are 3 things you can do to help your pieces from warping, your watercolor pieces. The first one was to make sure the back was wet as well as the front. The second one was to let it air dry, because if you come in with that heat tool and dry it, it will have a tendency to curl, right? So that was the second one. Now the third one is going to be, have a piece of scratch paper that you can add to the back of this. And by adding a piece of scratch paper, and I can see that that's too big, so it's not going to show, so just kind of cut this off. Make sure it's a little bit smaller than your finished piece of what you have going, and you're going to glue this on. And by gluing that on, it's like you're adding a lining to the back of this, and it's going to help take that warp out entirely. So I'm going to add, we'll add glue to this one because this one's a little bit smaller, but add your glue. Okay, be fairly generous with your glue. This is the one time you do want to be using a lot. Okay, because you really want it to stay down. And this third lining piece, you're just going to burnish it on nicely. And this is going to be the last step that will help you to have, and look, I'm squishing the glue right out. Okay, this is the last step that will help you have really, look at that. This piece is nice and flat. There's no warp there at all. So kind of a great tip there is to put that lining piece in. Okay, in the spirit of using things up, I don't even know what pack this is from. It is Pale Papaya. It's a cotton ribbon, kind of like, so let me bring my original in here. I was using up the pink, the petal pink cotton ribbon. I found this. I'll stick pieces of ribbon, just the ends of bolts. I'll stick them in I tape them to the inside door of my armoire where I have all my stamp stuff. But we're going to add this to the bottom before we add our tabs to the side. And I'm just gonna tie a bow, okay? Then we can add our sides, then we'll put it on the card base. Okay, so there's my using up this pale papaya. So oftentimes I will say ribbons to match. So that is, go through your stash and find ribbons that match. I'm sure you have some in your stash of stuff. Find something. It might be a white, it might be, you know, something neutral. You might have the exact color, who knows? But I just thought that this is a pretty, I'm like, oh, that's perfect. So we're using it up. Now I'm gonna take these little side tabs and we'll just add these right to the center. But I did want to make sure I was sandwiching my ribbon in there because I didn't want the ribbon to go around this as well. But you choose, it's up to you. So same thing on this side. Add this in. And I'm just eyeballing that it's kind of straight across. Tucking this one in as well. Okay, flip this over. Let's add some dimensionals. Put it on our card base. The other thing about having this lining sheet in there, you don't need as many dimensionals because that sheet of paper is helping to keep things level. So you're not going to have any saggy middles, if you know what I mean. Okay, and there you have, we are nearing the end of this. And so this card, I'm keeping it fairly simple, which is totally unlike me, but it's good. I need to restrain every now and again. Now I'm going to use my iridescent rhinestones and a little bit more stamping to finish it. So from the TaylorMade tags. So TaylorMade tags, it's kind of like stylish shapes and stitched rectangles. You need some basic shapes to kind of, you know, you don't always need leaves and crazy flowers and different, you know, die cuts of trees. It's nice to have some basic shapes in your stash of supplies. And TaylorMade tags is one of those. So this is the smallest of the angular tag, okay? So I'm using the smallest, and I've cut that out of Petal Pink. Petal Pink. You could also use Pale Papaya for this, would be great. So I'm going to stamp one of the greetings from the stamp set here. Gonna make this a birthday card for a very happy birthday. And I'm going to use Old Olive. It's interesting how different this one turned out than my original. And you have to be ready for things to be different when you're doing that type of a watercolor technique, especially after re-inking your ink pads. But look how nicely that stamped because it was re-inked. My original, how much softer it is, but it just, you know, you can soften by adding more water too. Now I'm going to add this to my ribbon, and all I'm going to do is just cheat here and give a quick little snip apart right there. So I could just slip this on. You won't even see that little snip because it's under the ribbon. And we'll just kind of let that whimsically hang there. You could put a dimensional under there and hold it in place. But, and I did do that on this one. It's just kind of up to you. Sometimes it makes it a little stiff looking, but we'll try it. Well, let's see what happens this time. So I'm just going to put one under the back corner there. Squish it on. And then just kind of naturally let it just, there it is. Okay, that's where it wants to lay. Fix our bow. Now let's add some of those rhinestones that we used on the previous card. Here they are. So these are the iridescent rhinestones, and it looks like there's an extra friend from the others. Put that back. And just have some fun wherever you want to put them. I think I'm going to do 3 on this. Where's my take your pick tool? I lost it. I'll use my favorite. I love a hobby blade. Okay, so I'm just going to do one kind of in here. And that's picked up a piece of lint. And then maybe a bigger one. So here's a medium. We'll do one right in here. And I'm gonna move this one out just a little bit to make room for another small right there. And then the question of the hour is, do we need to bring this flower, whoops, maybe we'll use a small. Do we need to bring this flower to life? I don't know. Or does it compete with these? So I think instead of that, I am going to do Wink of Stella. Okay, I don't want it to compete with these right here. So we will just, oh, I just love it when you put, it just wakens all of your stamping up when you give that little bit of Wink of Stella. Okay, get the leaves now that I've done the lighter color. There you have it. And then you can even do a little splatter. In fact, I even did, and I should have done it before we did all of this detail, I even took my light Flirty Flamingo and did just a little bit of splatter on the watercolor paper. Okay, just a little bit here and there. And there you have our kind of an aura. So we've got a little bit of that aura there. This one's really definite. You know, each one turns out just a little bit different, but they're just kind of fun. And it's fun to see where it's organically going to, where the ink is going to blend and where it's going to go. But by using the Stamparatus, it kind of, I put the Flirty Flamingo and then the Mossy Meadow, not Mossy Meadow, but Old Olive Pear Pizzazz kind of down on the lower half. And, you know, I could have maybe did a quick swish or a wash of color, but this was just kind of fun to see where it was going to land. The other thing you can do, so if this is too dark for you, is the other thing you could do is just go in and spritz it with more water, and that will kind of soften it and blend it out. Then just bring your Stamparatus back in and stamp that main image again. So you can do all kinds of things. I've even taken paper where I've like, oh, I don't like that. And I've taken it to the kitchen sink and rinsed the paper out. That's what's so cool about your, about using the watercolor paper is you've got that option to do. All right, so there you have it. Little watercolor technique there, a little different. And for our last card today, I thought it would be fun. I love this card. I made this for a blog hop a few weeks ago, but I thought it would be fun. Oh man, I've been looking. What is this? I'm like, is that a stamp? It's not a stamp. It's the foot had fallen out from here. Okay, it goes this way. So I thought, oh, is that a stamp I was looking for? Okay, sorry. Little under construction moment. So this card here, I made it. Oh gosh, geez, you guys, I'm so sorry. But I made it and I thought, let's do it again in a different color palette. And let's kind of change things up just a little bit. But this is the inspiration for our last card that we're going to make today. So I have a thick, basic white card base here. It is the same. We're doing 5.5 by 8.5, and I'm scoring it, yes, at 4 1/4. Unlike the last one I just did at the wrong measurement. Lovely. I thought I was so on the ball. Nope. Okay, there's that. Now I'm going to select a piece of the Dandy Designs Designer Series paper. And I thought I would pick this one. While it's entirely different from this piece, which this is from the Fancy Flora DSP, I thought, well, let's see how it looks to stamp our background on Designer Series paper. And that's what this project was, kind of a look into that, into stamping on Designer Series paper. And I know we've done that before. In fact, we did it last week, but this is a very graphic design. So let's see what happens. This is going to kind of be a happening. I am going to use I think I'm going to use soft seafoam on this. Okay. I'm going to use soft seafoam, and we're going to take our largest image. We're going to pull it off of the Stamparatus here. And now I'm going to add this to a block. Okay. So I have a nice big block handy for this. Okay, we'll add that in there. And we know it has some Pear Pizzazz and some other colors on it, but let's give it a quick clean. Hold on, dropped the chamois on the floor. Have a case of the dropsies today. So let's just give it a good clean. Okay, make sure it's clean. Yep, that looks good. That's amazing, the chamois. You think, oh, that's never gonna clean it, and then it does. Okay, so I'm gonna take my main image here. Get it all inked up. This is soft sea foam. And I'm going to start over here on the left and just stamp this whole thing. Who knows how this is going to turn out, folks? It might be ugly as all get up. It might be wonderful. Oh, thank you, Karen. Okay. Oh, actually, that looks pretty good. I'm liking it. It's amazing. You have to just take risks, folks. Now I'm going to kind of wiggle this one in here. Maybe come just a little bit higher. We'll stamp this one. Okay. Same thing. We'll move over. Just working ourselves across this page. Maybe we'll come down just a little bit. Fill in that gap right in there. Looking good. Nice. And we'll do this far edge. If it overlaps, like right there it's overlapping, you could have created a mask, but you can see we're going to put the tags over top, so it's not going to show. So you're good to go. So maybe this one will come in just a little lower. Yeah, we'll do this one lower. And in here, you know, let's just kind of fill that in a little bit. All right. Okay. That looks good. Kind of crazy, but be daring and do something a little bit different. So there's our background. And I think I'm also going to take, and I was going to give it, I thought I had brought, I was going to do a little flick of some green, but maybe we'll do a little flick of some darker green. Let's get I was going to use a blending pen, a Stampin' Blend, but I didn't bring a green one. But you can always do a nice, cool, let me just kind of clean the color out of this one. I should have used my diaper rag here, courtesy of Kayleen. All right, so now we've got some green. And I'm just going to do a little bit of a flick on this just to give it. And I'm not worrying so much about the middle because we're going to cover it up. But there you go. Just a little, you can use a Stampin' Blend. You can use your water painter and, you know, do a little flick action with the cap, whatever you like. So we'll let that dry while we kind of get things ready for our focal point here. So our focal point for this card, what I've done is I've gone back to my tailored tags and my stylish shapes. So I'm going to use Balmy Blue for this one because the color in here is, and I just took a cue right from the pack of paper. You have that, you know, that green and that Balmy Blue and that Coastal Cabana. So I'm just going to pull that Balmy Blue out this time. So I'm going to die cut myself. This is the smallest of the angled tags, which we just used on our on the card just before this. So we have that. So I'm just kind of, again, I'm casing myself. And I need the second to smallest of the stitched rectangles. Okay, that's going to go right there. And now let's kind of create the fun on this. Now, this one, I stamped 3 flowers and cut them out. This time, I think I'm going to do something a little bit different. Rather than having to cut the stem and everything, we're going to create a little bit of dimension. So I'm going to stamp on 3 of these tags here. The middle one, we're going to keep that for the greeting, okay? For this one, we're going to stamp in Memento Black. We're going to stamp this cool, we used it for the background on our first card. Let's see if I can find the stamp. Here it is. This image here. So we're going to stamp this kind of, I don't know if this is supposed to be a lily. It's not a flower I'm familiar with. And I'm familiar with a lot of flowers, folks. Okay, so I'm just inking up in the Memento, and I juiced this pad up, so I'm gonna stamp it on scratch paper to see how it's stamping. Okay, it's stamping okay. Sometimes when you re-ink a pad, it gets too juicy, and so you have to do a little work with it. Okay, so I'm gonna stamp this right in the center. Yes, it's not going to fit. That is totally okay. Okay, so there's the black, and we're gonna do this with all three. There's the second, and now the third. And now I kind of missed right in there. Don't worry, folks, we're gonna cover it up. Stamp that one. Okay, now with our, you could use Pear Pizzazz or you could use Old Olive. I'm gonna use Pear Pizzazz. It's a little lighter, not a whole lot. We haven't used this image yet. Let me take this little bee off for right now. But this image here fills in this bud and this, you know, the base of this little greenery piece. So I'm gonna take this and stamp right in there, like so, and like so, and one last. There you go. Okay, so those are ready, almost. Now go back to your scratch paper that we had from earlier today, and we're going to stamp this image 3 more times. But you're gonna stamp it, and you're basically just gonna stamp the top portion of, oops, I pushed too hard on this pad. Okay, you're going to stamp just basically, you want the top half of the flower, because we're only gonna cut that top portion out. So let's stamp 3 of those, 2 and 3, okay? And it doesn't really matter, we're gonna cut those out. And this time I'm going to use, I'm going to use a little pale papaya and a little Highland heather, or not Highland heather, fresh freesia. So I'm gonna ink up, and this is a stamp we haven't used yet in the set. This one here. So this one is the one that fills in this image. So it's like the 2-step of that. So let's ink up in pale papaya. Again, we're gonna flip it on its back, and we're going to, you know, knock down all that color. And then with just a little bit of fresh freesia, I'm going to just kind of tap in here, and I'm gonna make my own new color is paprika. I don't know, pale papaya and freesia. What color is that gonna be? Give it a huff. Go ahead and line that up and stamp that. That's an awful lot of pale papaya. I was trying to hold back on my fresh freesia because I didn't want, because I had re-inked it and I didn't want it to be too overpowering. But watch this, we're just gonna stamp it again. That's the beauty of these photopolymer, being able to see. Now we're getting some cool color there, just a little bit different. Let's do the same thing again. Let me just kind of wipe some of that off. Ink up in pale papaya. Let's tap a good portion of this off. Add that fresh freesia. Okay, we've made a new color and gave a little huff on that. Layer that right on top. Ooh, that's pretty. See, now look at that. It's just kind of, it's a happening. It just kind of happened. We got our own color. Okay, same drill. Let's see what we get on this third one. Pale papaya. Let's blot a lot of it off and add some of that fresh freesia. Give it a huff. Get that lined up just right. Ooh, cool. Super, super cool. Now we need to do the cone for the center. And for the cone on this, I'm going to use some Flirty Flamingo. And that little cone image, remember, it can color in the back end of the bee. It's this longer, more oval one, not the round one, but that one. So I'm going to ink it up in Flirty Flamingo. And I'm going to do it a couple times, just like we did with the others. Just kind of build up that Flirty Flamingo color. So you can kind of change the color of your ink pads just by overlaying your stamping. Okay, so you're going to do that to all of them. And one last step, let's bring, shoot, I just got ink all over my finger. Bring in Pear Pizzazz and this image one more time. And we're going to, and I know this is kind of stamped off, but I want to get the green in, and I'm going to just stamp off a little bit. Going to fill that in right there, that greenery. We want that to be in play here, that. And one more time, skip this one. So stamping off was almost like just blotting off with that brush, with the blending brush. And it's such a small image, it worked just fine. Now what we need to do is we need to cut these 3 out. But I have 2 of them done already. But you can see this is a real easy cut to do. You're just going to come in here and just do a quick, and you know, these more irregular shapes are so much easier to cut out for me. Oh, make me cut out a circle or a heart or something that's really even and smooth, cut edged. Ugh, takes me forever. I'm gonna do a rough cut just to loosen up the paper so I'm not fighting it so much. But just come in here, okay? Sometimes I turn the paper, sometimes I turn the blade. It just depends on the angle or whatever. But what I'm gonna do is actually get the entire flower and this little, the peplum right down here as well. So just coming around that, get rid of the bud on the other side, and then just come up and around. Okay. Yada, 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 yada. And there you go. Okay, kind of smooth out some of these cuts that got a little bit pokey. But now what we're gonna do is we'll take some dimensionals and I'm going to add a dimensional right on the center of each of these flowers. Okay, we'll peel these off. Okay, and now add each of your flowers that you've cut out like so. So we're creating just a little bit of dimension, and at the same time, we don't have to cut out all of that, you know, the button. It's not a whole lot to cut out, but it's just kind of a different take. You know, you got to try different things, see what it looks like. And I have these done already. Oh, they have dimensionals on them already, so I can take these off. Look at my ink pad differences from inking them up, juicing them up. Okay, there's that one. And that one. There we go. So now we have those 3 already. And it's going to it's our composition. We're casing that card from a couple weeks ago. Scooch some of that out of the way. Greeting wise, let's stamp it in black because our main image here has been in black. We've also stamped in soft seafoam. Why am I not using soft seafoam for my greeting? I could, but that's a pretty light color and I want it to stand out just a little bit more. So that's why I'm choosing to use the black. Okay, now if I can find the image. Maybe it's still in the box. I want to use the image that says, kindness matters. Let's see if I can find even the box. How does it get so messy? I mean, do you guys like destroy your stamp space? I mean, if you saw it to the sides, you'd be like, holy cow, how can she even tell what she's doing? I've got a stack of ink pads. Here's the box. Finally found it, sorry. Okay, kindness matters. Now, I want to point out, these are smaller on the front than they are in real life, okay? I don't know what the percentage is, but here's kindness matters. Let's add this to a block. I'm just going to remove this one for now. Okay, kindness matters. Ink it up. And I always do kind of a test run on greetings to make sure it's not puddling. You know, the ink isn't puddling in kind of the grooves on one side. Just making sure it inks up evenly. Stamp that right in the center of this circle. There you have it. Cool. All right, now before we glue this to here, we're gonna run our essentials. So this is the white from the essentials pack, okay? So this is the white. So I said it had white, crumb cake, ivory, black, and gray. So it has 5 colors. It's called the essentials pack. And what I'm gonna do is I am going to run my twine. Well, let me cut this end so that it's a little easier to get through. I know it's a big hole. It shouldn't be that hard, but it was not going. So I'm gonna go through this one, and I'm going to come up through this second one, and I'm gonna stop right there. Now I'm gonna bring my essentials twine around my cardstock and kind of unroll it as it's coming around. Give myself enough, okay? And now from this side, and I can pull this a little bit more, just throw those kind of off to the side. Now from this side, I'm going to do the same thing. I'm gonna string these on from the back. Actually, yes, string it in from the back. Put that one there. This will be the second one. String it in from the back. Put that there. Now you're gonna take this end, and so the one that's gonna have the kindness matters, that's gonna come up through here as well. So you've got 2 coming up through the third one. Okay, what will be the third. Now my ends are entirely uneven here, so we need to just kind of wiggle around until we get them right. Okay, just kind of hold the ends, wiggle it around. This is what I did the first time, but it's so you can kind of get that, your twine where you want it. And I really want it to end up in this plane kind of right here. Okay, so there, it's gonna go there. So now I'm gonna tie this in a bow. Okay, so now they're strung on. Cute, you guys, so cute. I'm thinking, oh, it's so springy as I look out at the snow. Yep, I woke up to us. It was completely all melted and has been for a while. And today, it's all back. We got snow on the ground. Okay, so now this bow looks terrible. So we just kind of, work it like so. Okay. Good. Now, I know I'm not totally ready for but I'm gonna go ahead and add this to my card base now because it's gonna give me a little more leverage rather than just on this piece of paper. So with a little bit of glue, let's just add this to our base. Okay. And there you have that. Okay, so question, do you guys stamp on designer series paper? Or do you just leave it as it is? I do both, but okay, get that just where you want it. Now I'm gonna go like this, flip that over. We're gonna add a dimensional to the back of each of these. Okay, so I've got 1. We're using up these pieces here. And let's do a dimensional on the kindness matters. Ta-da! Okay, now we can flip this back over. Now we're ready to kind of wiggle this into place exactly where we want it. And to get these even, what I'm gonna do is kind of space my 2 side ones. Then we'll place these in the center. And really what I should do is add the circle on so that we can see what the spacing is going to be. And then we'll anchor everything. So we'll just add this one right there. I think this is a fun little layout. I'm gonna do a little bit more of it. So now I think what I'm gonna do is I'm liking where this one's landing, so I'm gonna put this one in place. And you could let them just be more whimsical, or you could actually have them very, you know, because you could do kind of this action and that would be fun, a fun variation on this layout. But I think I'm going to keep them pretty, we'll go with kind of a very, oh, hey, there's no Dumaflechi on that. We'll go with a little bit more of a structured look here. Okay. All right. And once we get these in place, then we're going to look at adding some gems and a little wink of Stella and calling it finished. So engrossed in watching fussy cutting. Oh, you either love it or you hate it. And I mean, doing it, but what I love is what you have in the end. And it's something a little different than having, when you're talking fussy cutting, than having your a die cut, because you can really kind of get in and detail a little bit cleaner and do things that you can't do with the die cuts. Okay, so I am going to trim my ends here because we've got a little fray in action there. Even them up. That's good. Now some gems. And we'll just use the same gems we've been using. Using up these gems from the holiday catalog. You can see I kind of have they're a little bit all over the place here. But I think let's use the kind of greenish colored ones. And what's interesting is when you have some of these colors, like the greens and the blues, is while these are Coastal Cabana, as you start to add them in here with this card that has a lot of green and blue, is it just kind of takes on that shade. So don't be afraid to mix those. All right, where's my... Well, we already know we lost the take your pick tool. Now where'd my... Now I don't... Okay, well, here's another take your pick tool. We'll use this one. I've lost the other one, so I'm going to use these. And I'm just going to tuck these. I was like on a heyday with this. So we've got one tucked under here. See, look at that. It's Coastal Cabana, but look how pretty it is on Balmy Blue. And I have another one right there. I'm going to tuck this one just a little further in. Okay. And we'll put one up in here. And I even tucked another one right in here. So I'm really kind of highlighting the greeting here. Really give it a good punch right there. And a little bit of action over here on my original. Right back in there. And then, so it's like each tag gets a little highlight of, as I'm looking at it, what I did originally, a little bit of highlight of a sequins, but this one here, we're really kind of, this one gets more, really punched it up. Okay, a little wink of Stella and we'll be done. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to turn this over because all that scratch papery stuff is kind of distracting. Okay, so shake this up, give it a squeeze, make sure it's prepped. Okay, she's prepped. Give this a good paint. Again, it's like putting on your lip gloss. Okay, and we'll give it a flick. So the whole thing kind of shimmers and sparkles, however you want to do it. And there you have it. I cased myself, you know, kind of a completely different look. But, you know, just taking a risk. I had no idea what it was going to look like. I think it looks good. So you can stamp on something, you know, that's a little bit more organic, or stamp on something that is a bit more graphic. So there you have it. Case yourself, have some fun with the fussy cutting. You can also do a little watercolor with a kind of an aura look. And then we have, if pants have pockets, why can't cards kind of thing. Action happening here with our diagonal layout here. So fun stuff today. Hope you've learned something. If you've made something with this, let's share it with one another. Let's be inspired by one another. I know Sherry has been so generous to show some of the things she's done, and a few others. Nicole has, and Jacqueline. It's fun to see what you guys do. I want to see. I want to see what you're making. So Denise says, wow, okay, good. I'm glad you like it. And then just finishing up on, Sherry says that it stretches her abilities. That's right. That's what we're here for. So, let's learn from one another, and let's have some fun. I will see you next week for technique time. Hopefully you have signed up for that. This class is so pretty, and I just love the way everything came together. I will see you then. Have an awesome weekend and a great week. Make sure you stamp something pretty, and I will see you next Thursday. Take care, folks.